The explosion at Ron Van Leen's house wasn't the first, and it wasn't even the 20th. The plumber from Vardingen had been targeted 27 times over a span of 14 months, when he eventually died of a heart attack. Likely intensified by the stress, the attacks didn't stop. Just 2 days after his funeral, another explosive device went off. This is the reality in the Netherlands today, a nation grappling with a wave of bombings that law enforcement struggles to contain. In 2024 alone, police responded to 1,543 explosive incidents. In the first half of 2025, there were already 678 attacks and attempted attacks involving explosives, but these numbers only scratch the surface of a deeper story, one involving motorcycle clubs that were officially banned but never truly disappeared. The persistence of banned clubs. On June 18, 2018, Dutch courts banned the Satudara Motorcycle Club, a decision mirrored by Germany in 2015 and Norway in 2024. The bans were comprehensive, shutting down operations, seizing assets, and prohibiting members from gathering. Despite these legal victories, police intelligence from 2024 painted a different picture. Satudara was believed to still be operating 14 underground chapters in the Netherlands. The Hells Angels had an estimated 18 secret chapters, and No Surrender maintained 16 hidden cells, all defying legal dissolution. These so-called outlaw clubs no longer operate openly. Instead of clubhouses and public gatherings, they use encrypted networks and shell organizations, making them harder to detect and dismantle. Some members are officially registered under new club names but maintain allegiance to the original banned organizations. Going global. Many of these clubs are now expanding internationally. Police reports indicate the emergence of chapters in Spain and South America. Ironically, being banned in the Netherlands has only increased their international appeal. Some Dutch-based members even helped launch chapters abroad to keep operations alive. In Denmark, Satudara disbanded in name only. In 2023, it rebranded as Comancheros MC, retaining the same members and activities while skirting the ban. These adaptations show the resilience and evolution of such criminal networks. The explosion crisis. The Netherlands is facing a surge of explosive violence. Bombings rose from 212 in 2021 to over 1,700 in 2024. The vast majority occur in Rotterdam, Amsterdam, and The Hague. But smaller towns are no longer safe either. Attackers use powerful fireworks or improvised explosive devices to damage homes and intimidate residents. Alarmingly, the perpetrators are getting younger. Police have arrested suspects as young as 13 years old. In one case, a 23-year-old man died when his explosive device went off prematurely. Despite hundreds of arrests, the attacks continue. Why? Because criminal organizations quickly replace captured operatives with new recruits. In the Vardingen case involving Ron Van Leen, police arrested 6 different suspects, yet the attacks persisted even after his death. Who's behind the attacks? Although police once believed that most bombings were tied to criminal groups, recent findings suggest over half stem from domestic conflicts, such as personal feuds or relationship issues. However, the methods used, explosives, intimidation, teenage couriers, are borrowed directly from organized crime playbooks, especially outlaw motorcycle clubs. Some attacks are still linked to drug turf wars, but many appear to be copycat incidents. The normalization of explosive violence in everyday disputes signals a disturbing shift in Dutch society. What was once the domain of organized crime is now being imitated by civilians with personal grievances. The legacy of Satudara. To understand this violence, it's essential to understand Satudara's origins and operations. Founded in 1990 by 9 friends of Moluccan descent in South Holland, Satudara MC quickly gained a reputation for extreme violence. More feared than even the local Hells Angels, they spread across Europe and into Asia, Australia, and South America. Satudara members were regularly linked to drug trafficking, extortion, weapons smuggling, and violent assaults. The Dutch court noted a culture where criminal behavior was rewarded, silence was enforced, and violent acts earned internal praise and patches. Even after being banned, Satudara's international chapters remain active. The club had a strong presence in Antwerp, Sweden, and Australia. Despite shutdowns, members frequently regrouped under new names or reorganized across borders, allowing operations to persist with minimal disruption. Government and law enforcement response. In response to the surge in explosions, Dutch authorities formed a national task force in 2024 and made over 500 arrests. However, the violence continues. A new bill seeks to give the Minister for Legal Protection greater authority to ban criminal organizations, including those not structured as motorcycle clubs. Still, many local governments are overwhelmed. Municipalities like Waardingen report surveillance costs becoming unsustainable. In The Hague, despite deploying 23 mobile cameras, the number of explosions doubled. Mayor John van Zanen admitted that there is no quick solution to the crisis: recruitment and exploitation of youth. Criminal groups are recruiting minors to carry out attacks. These young individuals, often from vulnerable backgrounds, are manipulated into taking high risks in exchange for money or status. Many don't fully understand the serious legal consequences of their actions. Encrypted messaging apps allow organizers to stay several layers removed from the actual perpetrators. This structure makes prosecution more difficult, and while youth are jailed, the masterminds remain untouched. Criminologist Katarina Kroosman warns that tougher sentences alone won't deter these teens. Without addressing the root causes, poverty, social isolation, lack of opportunity, the cycle will continue. Explosive violence in the Netherlands, the legacy of banned motorcycle clubs. Young people recruited to plant explosives through intermediaries rarely reject these assignments, even when heavier penalties are involved. According to Dutch media sources, the geographic concentration of explosive attacks reveals patterns that suggest lingering territorial control or influence by organized crime groups. Geographic patterns and club legacy. Most explosions are occurring in Rotterdam and Amsterdam, areas historically dominated by outlaw motorcycle clubs. Although these clubs have been legally disbanded, the continued violence in these areas indicates that their influence persists, possibly through alternative or underground structures. The territorial nature of these attacks shows that the conflicts and rivalries established during the legal operation of these clubs still play out today. Rotterdam, in particular, has become a hotspot due to its status as a major port city and long history of organized crime. In Amsterdam, attacks are concentrated in specific neighborhoods, reinforcing the theory that these are strategic acts, not random outbursts. This pattern suggests the violence is designed to send messages, either to rivals or to the public, about territorial dominance and intimidation, rather than serving arbitrary criminal motives. The copycat effect: civilian adoption of criminal tactics. One of the most alarming developments is that explosive attacks are no longer limited to organized crime. Research reveals that over half of these incidents now arise from domestic disputes between civilians, often over personal relationships. This signals a cultural shift, where methods once used exclusively by criminal groups are now being adopted by ordinary citizens. The normalization of such tactics points to a broader social contagion, where once forbidden methods become tools for resolving personal conflict. Law enforcement is now dealing with both organized networks and civilians, each using explosives as a form of retaliation or control, economic drivers, and sustainability of violence. Despite extensive police crackdowns, the attacks continue because the economic incentives remain strong. The financial gain for those willing to plant explosives is high, and the barrier to entry is low. Recruiters can easily find new participants willing to take the risk. The structure of these criminal enterprises, with a clear divide between those who order the hits and those who carry them out, insulates leadership from the impact of arrests. When one low-level operative is caught, another quickly takes their place. Explosives remain relatively cheap and easy to deploy, making them accessible to a wide range of perpetrators. This affordability supports both organized criminal activity and civilian adoption. Without disrupting the economic foundations of these networks, law enforcement alone may not be enough to stop the violence. The current situation, 2025. As of 2025, the situation is worsening. There have already been 678 explosive attacks in the first half of the year alone. The tactics and templates originally developed by motorcycle clubs have continued to spread through both criminal networks and broader society. Intelligence reports show that despite legal bans, motorcycle clubs retain substantial influence. 14 Satudara chapters, 18 Hells Angels networks, 16 No Surrender cells. These structures represent organizational continuity despite the bans. Additionally, 84 new small motorcycle clubs have formed since the original bans, often exhibiting more extreme behavior than their predecessors. These groups are frequently founded by former members, and their emergence shows that eliminating an organization doesn't eliminate its ideology or appeal. Economic drivers and sustainability of violence. Despite extensive police crackdowns, the attacks continue because the economic incentives remain strong. The financial gain for those willing to plant explosives is high, and the barrier to entry is low. Recruiters can easily find new participants willing to take the risk. The structure of these criminal enterprises, with a clear divide between those who order the hits and those who carry them out, insulates leadership from the impact of arrests. When one low-level operative is caught, another quickly takes their place. Explosives remain relatively cheap and easy to deploy, making them accessible to a wide range of perpetrators. This affordability supports both organized criminal activity and civilian adoption. Without disrupting the economic foundations of these networks, law enforcement alone may not be enough to stop the violence. The current situation, 2025. As of 2025, the situation is worsening. There have already been 678 explosive attacks in the first half of the year alone. The tactics and templates originally developed by motorcycle clubs have continued to spread through both criminal networks and broader society. Intelligence reports show that despite legal bans, motorcycle clubs retain substantial influence. 14 Satudara chapters, 18 Hells Angels networks, 16 No Surrender cells. These structures represent organizational continuity despite the bans. Additionally, 84 new small motorcycle clubs have formed since the original bans, often exhibiting more extreme behavior than their predecessors. These groups are frequently founded by former members, and their emergence shows that eliminating an organization doesn't eliminate its ideology or appeal. The international challenge. These new outlaw groups are not just domestic threats, they are expanding internationally, especially into Spain and South America. This creates a new layer of difficulty for Dutch authorities, who now need to coordinate across multiple jurisdictions with different laws and capabilities. What was once seen as a national success story in banning criminal clubs has become a global policing challenge. Key lessons and warnings. The Dutch experience shows that legal prohibition alone is not enough to dismantle criminal organizations. Courts can eliminate names and structures, but not the skills, connections, and economic motives that keep these groups alive. The rise of 84 new clubs since the bans indicates that prohibition often leads to adaptation, not elimination. Criminal actors restructure, rename, and relocate, continuing to operate with equal or greater effectiveness. Perhaps the most chilling consequence is the cultural shift, the use of explosives in civilian disputes. This is no longer just organized crime. It's a societal transformation. Violence once confined to the criminal underworld has now entered mainstream personal conflicts, changing the way everyday people settle grievances. Conclusion: a new era of violence. The story of Ron Vanufailen, who suffered 27 explosive attacks before his death, captures the deep and lasting impact of this phenomenon. His death did not end the violence. It only exposed how deeply rooted and resilient these networks have become. Despite banning the Satudara, Hells Angels, and No Surrender clubs, law enforcement continues to monitor 14 active Satudara underground chapters, 18 Hells Angels cells, 16 No Surrender factions. These underground operations have shown an impressive capacity for survival even under sustained legal and policing pressure. The 1,543 explosive incidents recorded in 2024 were not isolated events. They are the continuation of a tactical legacy born from organized crime that has now spread across society. And with 678 more attacks already in 2025, the trend shows no signs of slowing down. The real question is no longer whether these outlaw clubs still exist. The intelligence confirms they do. The question is whether law, society, and institutions can adapt quickly enough to counter a new generation of criminal and civilian violence rooted in the shadows of the past.